It was Aaron Nimzovich who once said that the beauty of a move lies not in its appearance, but in the thought that lies behind it. If you want to become a strong chess player, you need to learn how strong chess players think. So in this video, I'm going to share 7 instructive positions that show very clearly the difference between how lower rated players think versus how master level players think. These tips help me reach a rating of 2100 on chess.com Rapid, and I think they can improve your play as well, so keep watching. My name's Nathan Rose, I'm the author of Chess Opening Names. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button. I do all kinds of great content on chess, so by subscribing, you won't miss out on any of the future videos that I'm preparing. Lesson 1. Improving a piece may require going backwards first. This position comes from Tarrasch versus Blackburn all the way back in 1895. Now it's white to move here, and if we do an evaluation, I think it's clear to see that white is doing very well. This pawn on e5 gives white a great deal of extra space in the centre, and white's also got this pressure along the f-file towards f7. But the question is, how can white continue to improve? Well, if we look at the material, we can see that white has a dark squared bishop, whereas black has traded off their dark squared bishop. And in addition to this, black has gone for a fianchetto setup around their kingside, and all of this points to the fact that black could be very weak on the dark squares. But in order to exploit that, we need to get this bishop to a better square. We need to bring it around. So imagine the bishop on f6 combined with the queen coming into h6. That would mean that the black king would find itself checkmated on the dark squares, right? So we begin the maneuver with bishop to e1. A backwards move, which for many players is tough to see. This is why I wanted to highlight it. We're taught in chess that we want to be aggressive, we want to be dynamic, we want to be active with our pieces, and going backwards for this reason is not the first move that often comes to mind. It requires a positional understanding to see such a move. Let's see a few more moves and how the game continued. So queen to e7 prevented bishop to h4 for the time being, but then white renewed the threat by playing rook to f6. So h6 was played, and then bishop to h4, and now black has to think about some kind of rook takes g6 check, unveiling a threat against the black queen. I'll show a couple more moves because the game only lasted a couple more moves. g5 was played, and this allowed white to sacrifice with rook takes h6. There are a few different lines here, but I'll concentrate on the moves which actually happened in the game. You can look at the game yourself if you want to see what would happen if there were other captures. But black chose to take the bishop, and then there was a capture on h8. Black had to take back, and then the queen entered, and with the bishop and the queen, it was pretty clear that black had no chance. Black resigned. So it all started though with finding this maneuver, this bishop to e1 coming around to take advantage of the dark squares. So when you're looking at your pieces and you're looking at which pieces you need to improve, always consider backward moves as a possibility. Lesson 2. Trade off the defenders of weak squares. This position is from Karpov versus Unzicker, 1974. Maybe some of you recognize it. It's a very famous game where Karpov used his bishop to block the a-file, thereby keeping black very cramped for space. But it's what Karpov did next with his other bishop, the light-squared bishop, that I want to highlight here. Because in this position, Karpov played bishop to h5. Now what's the idea of this? Well, Karpov would really like to get a knight into h5. But if you do that straight away, then black has the option of capturing. After white takes back, it looks as though white's got a lot of control over these light squares, but the thing is the position is so closed that the light squared bishop can't actually create any meaningful threats. In such a closed position, a knight is more useful on h5 than a bishop. So bishop to h5 has the idea of trading off the defender of the h5 square. In an ideal world for white, black would initiate the capture and then white gets the knight to h5. But of course, Karpov's opponent was a strong player too, so he didn't do this. Instead he played queen to e8, creating more tension on the key h5 square. So queen to d1 maintained the tension, and Karpov needed to redeploy his knights to better squares. So let's fast forward a few moves to see this position here, which is just a few moves later. And it was at this point that Karpov decided to initiate the capture on f7. Black took back, and now we get the invasion. Actually, the queen comes into h5 first, and we're going to see why. Because queen to g6 can come next. If black initiates the queen trade, then another square becomes available for a white knight to hop into. And instead black played king to f8, but that allowed finally the knight to reach the h5 square. But it all began all the way back here with bishop to h5, identifying that the weak square was h5, identifying that you wanted to get a knight into that square, and identifying the defender. If you're enjoying this video so far, please show your appreciation by giving it a like down below. It'll help it reach a greater audience. And with that, let's get back to the lessons. Lesson 3. Take every small win you can. This mindset really is a hallmark of strong chess players. They're always looking for improvements, however tiny, over the most obvious move. Our model game here is Portish versus Fischer 1966. It's black to move here, and black does have the opportunity of capturing this pawn on c4. And actually, that's what happened. Fischer captured on c4, white captured back, and the game continued from here. Now this game and this position actually featured in Bobby Fischer's book, My 60 Memorable Games, and he was very critical of himself that he didn't play the move queen to a4 first. Queen to a4 first is a small improvement, the type of small improvement that I'm getting across in this lesson. By playing this move first, you worsen black's dark squared bishop, and only then do you take on c4. Materially, it's the same, but positionally, it's an improvement. So look out for opportunities such as this in your own games too. Lesson 4. Close the area of the board that your opponent wants to play. It's black to move in Capablanca versus Trebell, 1929, and black played a takes b5, probably expecting that white would play a takes b5, recapturing. But white didn't do that. Instead, white played a very instructive move, the main point of this lesson, which is h6 first. So what h6 does is it completely shuts down the king side, due to the pawn structure being completely locked over this side of the board. And with the king side locked, white can concentrate on the queen side without black having any king side counterplay. So black has to play king to f8, and only now does white recapture on b5. White's got complete control over the a file at present, and we're going to see how white redeploys all of their forces over to that side of the board. So king to e7, and now you can see over the next few moves how white brings all of their pieces over to the a file. Let's fast forward a few moves and see how white was able to eventually exploit this. So white has now got everything on the a file, including the knight, and then after black tries desperately to hold on to everything, white plays a tactic with bishop to a6. Once the pawn takes, then white starts infiltrating into black's position, and black quickly collapsed. But it all started with the move all the way back here, h6 check. By closing down the king side, Capablanca didn't have to worry about any counterplay over there, and could instead redivert all of his forces over to the queen side, where he was able to gain a decisive advantage and eventually break through. If you've watched this far, it's because you're serious about improving your chess. I help serious adult improvers reach their goals in the game, whatever they may be. So if you'd like to explore working together, click the link in the description below. It's at the top of the description and as the pinned comment, and we can see if working together will be a good fit. And with that, let's get back to the lessons. Lesson 5. Go beyond the surface level of material values. As beginners, we're taught that a pawn is worth 1 point. Knights and bishops are worth 3 points. A rook is worth 5 points. A queen is worth 9 points. Now for those who are new to chess, this is useful, but these are really training wheels that as we advance in the game, we need to know when to think differently. Sometimes a knight or a bishop can be worth more than a rook, for example. And we're going to illustrate this with the following position from Mykonos versus Feigen, 1939. This position is a total mess. Both kings are in some danger, I think we can agree. But it's white to move, and it's not really so much the move that white plays, but it's the move that white doesn't play. So the most natural move, and I think the move that most players watching this video would look at first, is knight takes f7 check. So once the king moves out of check, you capture the rook in the corner, which looks very good, but actually this sees a large part of white's advantage disappear. In a position like this, the black rook isn't playing, and much more active is this black bishop. White is themselves in some danger, and this light squared bishop is causing some of the problems for white's king. So much stronger actually is to take off the dangerous bishop. Now after black recaptures, then white has a much easier time of getting their own attack in. Rook to d1 check, the king moves away, and then white can keep making threats, first against the black queen, then against f7, and black is going to find themselves without a good defense pretty quickly. If you instead take the rook, like we saw in the other line, there can be some chances of black gaining counterplay here. According to the engine, it's still very good for white, but I think that this bishop combined with this queen would give black some practical counter-attacking chances. And that's why you need to know when not to take the material according to that simple scale of a rook being worth more than a bishop. In a critical position like this one, you need to understand that it's actually the bishop that's much more dangerous, and therefore capture that, not the rook. Lesson 6. Capturing material, even with check, is not always the right thing to do. To illustrate this, we have a sideline from Alyekin versus Adstalos, 1927. It's white to move, and I think clearly the most tempting move for white here is to capture this undefended pawn on h5 with check. But this sees white's position go from winning to losing after black simply blocks. White can give one more check with bishop to d3, but black can block again, and now white is just material down. Instead, in the original position, the winning move for white was the quiet move, difficult to see unless you have the right mindset, but the quiet move queen to f6 with a few unstoppable threats. One threat is to play bishop to d3 checkmate. So for example, if rook to d1, then bishop to d3 ends the game. If you try and block bishop to d3 with rook to b3, then the other threat is taking on e6. And obviously black can't take back because black would just lose the queen, and pretty soon the game. So this mindset of not always going for material, not always going for the check, is very important when you're in the final stages of an attack. Look for quiet moves, because that can create threats which are even stronger than giving an immediate check. Lesson 7. Calculate further. This is so important if you want to become a strong chess player. And to illustrate this, I'm going to use one of my own games, which I played online in 2023. It's black to move here, and my opponent played knight to f5, which has a couple of threats. One threat is, of course, to capture the queen, so I can't allow that. But the other threat that black has is to play b5, which would fork my bishop and knight. Now, I didn't want to do this, but I thought that I had no choice but to trade queens. The reason I didn't want to do this is because I wanted to keep all the pressure that black was under. I've got a rook on the file of the black queen. Black is also yet to castle their king, and in fact, black's going to find it very difficult to do that because he's already moved the rook. So trading queens is not something that I wanted to do, but I felt that I had no choice. So that's what I did. This saw a lot of my advantage disappear after black recaptured, and the game went on. But what I want to highlight is that I could have found a way to avoid trading queens if I had calculated further. So back to the original position. I could have played here queen to f4. Now this requires looking at what happens if black does play the other threat of playing b5. Well, calculate further and you can see that you can actually play knight to e5. Black can trade off this knight, but after you take back, black doesn't really have time to take this bishop because of rook takes d7. And now black is in a world of trouble. So I needed to calculate one more move, and if I'd done that, I would have been able to secure an easy victory. I hope you found these lessons to be valuable. Remember, I help ambitious adults reach their goals in chess, so if you'd like to explore working with me, click the link in the description below. Aside from that, if you did get value from this video, do me a favour and drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this one, and do feel free to drop a comment down below as well. I'd love to hear what you thought. Until next time then, I'm Nathan Rose, thanks for watching, and bye for now.